Marcus Chen walked slowly to his small apartment after another long day at work. His feet hurt and his back was sore from standing at his desk for 10 hours. He worked for the Terran Colonial Authority on the planet New Geneva, managing supplies and making sure food and equipment got to the right places. It was not exciting work, but someone had to do it. New Geneva was not a beautiful planet. The sky was always gray, and the buildings were made from cheap metal that rusted quickly. Most of the colonists were people who could not afford to live on better worlds. Marcus was one of them. He had come here 3 years ago when he lost his job on Earth. The pay was low, but at least he had work. Marcus opened the door to his apartment. It was small. Just one room with a bed, a table, and a tiny kitchen. He heated up his dinner, which was artificial protein that tasted like cardboard and vegetables grown in water tanks. He had just taken his first bite when someone knocked on his door. Marcus frowned. Nobody ever visited him. He walked to the door and looked through the small window. 2 alien women stood outside. They were Zilithians, with blue-silver skin and 4 fingers on each hand. Both wore dark bands around their arms. Marcus knew these bands meant their husbands had died recently. He opened the door carefully. The 2 women looked very thin and tired. Their clothes were old and dirty. One of them stepped forward and spoke in broken Galactic Standard, the language most species use to talk to each other. "Please, sir," she said. "We are Kes and Nira. We need work. We try everywhere. Nobody help us. You are human. We hear humans sometimes different." Marcus looked at them closely. Zilithians usually lived good lives. They were known for being smart with numbers and computers. These 2 looked like they had not eaten well in weeks. "Come inside," Marcus said. "You look hungry." The 2 women looked shocked. The one called Kes shook her head quickly. "We cannot take your food. We have no money to pay." "I did not ask for money," Marcus said. "Come in. It is cold out there." Slowly, the twins walked into his apartment. They stood very straight and did not touch anything. Marcus poured water into 2 cups and gave it to them. Then he divided his small dinner into 3 parts and offered them the food. "We cannot," Nira whispered. "You need food for yourself." "I have enough," Marcus lied. "Eat." The women ate very slowly, like they were afraid the food would disappear. Marcus sat down across from them and waited for them to explain why they were here. "My name is Kes," the first woman said. "This is my sister Nira. We are twins. 6 months ago, our husbands died in mining accident on our homeworld." "I am sorry," Marcus said. "Thank you," Kes continued. "On our world, when husband dies, wife loses everything. House, job, money, all belongs to husband's family now. We have nowhere to go." Nira spoke very quietly. "We try to get work. We are good with numbers and computers. We worked for government before, but Galactic Employment Bureau says we are emotionally unstable. They say we grieve too long." "How long are you supposed to grieve?" Marcus asked. "Galactic Standard is 30 days, Kes said. "But we still sad after 6 months. They say this is not normal." Marcus felt angry. 30 days to get over losing your husband? That was crazy. When his father died 2 years ago, Marcus was sad for almost a year. "We ask for work at 47 different places," Nira said. "All say no. Some say we are too emotional. Others say Zilithians are weak now. Everyone thinks we are broken." "What kind of work did you do before?" Marcus asked. Kes looked up. "I did predictive analysis for resource distribution. I could calculate how much food and supplies different cities would need months ahead of time. I optimized transport routes," Nira added. "I found the best ways to move things from one place to another with least cost and time." Marcus blinked. These were exactly the skills New Geneva needed. The colony was always running out of food or having supplies arrive late. If these women were as good as they claimed, they could solve many problems. "Have you tried asking humans for work before?" he asked. "You are first humans we meet," Kes said. "We hear humans sometimes hire people for strange reasons, not just efficiency. Sometimes humans care about other things." "What other things?" Kindness, Nira said softly. We heard humans sometimes help people just because it is right thing to do. Marcus thought about this. It was true that humans were different from most aliens. Other species always talked about efficiency and profit. Humans cared about those things too, but they also cared about fairness and helping others. I work for the colonial authority here, Marcus said. We need people who are good with numbers and logistics. Would you be willing to work for us? The twins looked at each other with wide eyes. You would hire us? Kes whispered. I cannot promise anything, Marcus said. But I can ask my boss. What would you need for salary? Anything. Nira said quickly. Just enough for small room and basic food. We are not proud. We just need chance to work. Marcus shook his head. That is not how we do things. If you work, you get paid fairly. The twins started crying. They tried to hide it, but tears ran down their blue faces. Marcus felt uncomfortable. He was not good with emotional situations. Why are you crying? He asked gently. For 6 months, everyone treats us like broken things. Kes said through her tears. You treat us like people. Marcus did not know what to say. He just sat quietly while the women cried. Finally, they stopped and wiped their faces. I will talk to my boss tomorrow, Marcus promised. Can you come back tomorrow evening? I should have an answer by then. Cried. Yes, both women said at the same time. Do you have somewhere to stay tonight? We have small shelter outside town, Nira said. It is not good, but it is dry. Marcus wanted to offer them his apartment, but he knew that would be too much, too fast. Tomorrow, at 7, he said. Come back then. The twins stood up and bowed deeply. Thank you, Marcus Chen. Even if your boss says no, you have been kind to us. We will not forget. After they left, Marcus sat in his apartment thinking. Tomorrow he would have to convince Director Okafor to hire 2 alien refugees that the entire galaxy had rejected. It would not be easy, but something told him it was the right thing to do. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work 30 minutes early. He needed time to think about how to approach Director Sarah Okafor. She was a smart woman, but she always worried about rules and regulations. Hiring alien refugees might cause problems with the Galactic Council. Marcus walked to the supply warehouse where he spent most of his time. Boxes of food and equipment were stacked everywhere in no particular order. Workers constantly complained they could not find what they needed. Transport ships arrived late because nobody could plan delivery routes properly. New Geneva was always behind schedule and over budget. At 9 o'clock, Marcus knocked on Director Okafor's office door. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her desk was covered with reports and complaint forms. Marcus, she said without looking up, please tell me you have good news about the food shortage in Sector 7. Actually, I might have a solution for that and other problems, Marcus said carefully. Sarah looked up with tired eyes. I am listening. Marcus took a deep breath. Last night, 2 Zilithian women came to my apartment asking for work. They are refugees whose husbands died 6 months ago. They have been rejected for employment everywhere because of species prejudice. Sarah's expression became worried. Marcus, we cannot get involved in galactic politics. If the Zilithian government or the Galactic Council thinks we are interfering, let me finish, Marcus said. These women are not ordinary refugees. One is an expert in predictive logistics modeling. The other specializes in transport optimization. They used to work for their planetary government. Used to work, Sarah repeated. Why did they stop? Zilithian law says when a husband dies, the widow loses all property and professional credentials. She basically becomes a non-person. Sarah frowned. That is barbaric. The Galactic Employment Bureau rejected them 47 times. Other species say they are emotionally unstable because they grieve longer than 30 days. 30 days? Sarah stood up from her chair. They expect someone to get over losing their spouse in 30 days? Apparently that is the galactic standard for efficient emotional processing, Marcus said. Sarah walked to her window and looked out at the chaotic warehouse below. What exactly can these women do? Marcus pulled out his datapad and showed Sarah the information Kes and Nira had given him the night before. Kes developed prediction algorithms that could forecast resource needs 3 months in advance, with 94% accuracy. Nira created transport optimization systems that reduced shipping costs by 40% on her home world. Sarah read the information twice. If this is accurate, these skills are exactly what we need. Our efficiency ratings are terrible. We are ranked 847 out of 923 Terran settlements. I know, Marcus said. We are always running out of food or getting supplies we do not need. Our transport costs are 50% higher than the colonial average. Sarah sat down and thought quietly for several minutes. Finally, she looked at Marcus. What would the political implications be? I checked the regulations last night, Marcus said. There is nothing that prevents us from hiring qualified individuals regardless of species, as long as they have proper work authorization. Do they have work authorization? They have temporary refugee status, which allows them to work anywhere in Terran space. Sarah smiled grimly. So legally, we are clear. But the Galactic Council will not be happy if we succeed where their member species failed. Is that our problem? Marcus asked. Good point. Sarah stood up again. Bring them in this afternoon. I want to interview them personally. If they are as good as you say, the Council's loss is our gain. That evening, Marcus met Kes and Nira outside the Colonial Authority building. They looked nervous and had cleaned their clothes as best they could. Marcus led them to Director Okafor's office. Sarah was professional but kind. She asked the twins about their experience and qualifications. She also asked them to explain specific projects they had worked on. Kes and Nira answered clearly and showed detailed knowledge of logistic systems. Can you analyze our current supply situation? Sarah asked, handing them a datapad with New Geneva's logistics reports. The twins looked at the data for 20 minutes. Then Kes looked up with sad eyes. Your system is very inefficient. You order too much of some things and not enough of others. Your prediction model assumes static consumption, but people's needs change with seasons and circumstances. Can you fix it? Sarah asked. Yes, Nira said quietly. But it will take time. We would need access to 3 months of historical data and current inventory reports. What about transport costs? Your shipping routes are terrible, Nira said, then looked embarrassed. I am sorry. I do not mean to be rude. Sarah laughed. Do not apologize for telling the truth. How are they terrible? You ship things in small loads on irregular schedules. It would be much cheaper to coordinate larger shipments with predictable timing. Also, your warehouse layout is chaotic. Workers waste hours looking for items. Sarah and Marcus exchanged looks. Everything the twins said was exactly right. If we hired you, Sarah said, what would you need to do your jobs effectively? Just computer access and current data, Kes said. We do not need expensive equipment or large offices. What about salary expectations? The twins looked at each other nervously. We are grateful for any work, Nira said. We do not need much money. That is not what I asked, Sarah said firmly. What is fair compensation for your skills and experience? Marcus watched Sarah's face and realized she was testing the twins. Many species would try to exploit desperate refugees by paying very low wages. Sarah wanted to see if humans would do the same thing. On our home world, we earned standard government salaries for senior analysts, Kes said carefully. But we understand our situation is different now. Your situation is that you are overqualified refugees who have been discriminated against, Sarah said. That does not mean you should accept unfair pay. The twins looked confused. We do not understand, Nira said. If you are as skilled as you appear, then you deserve to be paid what those skills are worth, Sarah explained. That is how humans operate. Kes started crying again. Everyone else sees us as broken things to be discarded. You see us as people with value. Sarah's expression softened. Everyone has value. Some societies forget that, but we try not to. After the twins left, Sarah turned to Marcus. Hire them both. Give them full analyst positions with standard pay and benefits. If they can do half of what they claim, we will jump 50 spots in the efficiency rankings within 3 months. What about the political complications? Marcus asked. Let me worry about politics, Sarah said. You worry about getting them set up with proper workspace and computer access. Marcus smiled. Should I be concerned that we are hiring people the Galactic Council considers unemployable? Marcus, Sarah said. If the Galactic Council is too stupid to recognize talent because of bureaucratic prejudice, then we will benefit from their stupidity. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones that make bureaucrats angry. As Marcus walked home that night, he felt hopeful for the first time in months. Tomorrow, Kes and Nira would start work. If everything went well, New Geneva might finally become the kind of place where people wanted to live instead of the place they ended up when they had no other choice. 2 weeks after Kes and Nira started working, Marcus could barely recognize the supply warehouse. The chaotic stacks of boxes had been organized into logical sections with clear labels. Workers could find what they needed in minutes instead of hours. The twins had also created a computer system that tracked every item and predicted when supplies would run low. Marcus walked through the warehouse with a smile on his face. Pablo Rodriguez, one of the senior engineers, was teaching Nira how to use the coffee machine. She was fascinated by the idea that humans drank hot liquid for pleasure rather than just nutrition. But why do you add sugar? Nira asked. It serves no nutritional purpose. Pablo laughed. Not everything has to be about nutrition. Sometimes we do things because they make us happy. Happiness is not efficient, Nira said, but she was smiling as she said it. Efficiency is not everything, Pablo replied. Life should be enjoyed, not just survived. Marcus had watched this kind of conversation happen many times over the past 2 weeks. The twins were amazed by human customs that seemed wasteful or illogical. Lunch breaks where people talked about their families instead of work. Birthday celebrations for colleagues. The way humans asked each other, "How are you?" and actually listened to the answer. Kes walked over carrying a data pad with a big smile on her face. Marcus, look at these numbers. Marcus read the report and his eyes widened. In just 2 weeks, New Geneva's efficiency ratings had improved dramatically. Food waste was down 31%. Transport costs had decreased by 28%. They had not run out of any essential supplies, which had not happened in over a year. How did you do this so quickly? Marcus asked. Your old system was just very bad, Kes said politely. Even small improvements make big difference. Nira joined them, holding a cup of coffee carefully. Also, human workers are more cooperative than we expected. When we explain why we need certain information, they help us. On our world, workers only did exactly what they were ordered to do. Humans work better when they understand the purpose of their tasks, Marcus explained. This is inefficient according to galactic management theory, Kes said. Workers should just follow orders without needing explanations. Galactic management theory sounds terrible, Pablo said. No wonder so many colonies fail. That afternoon, Director Okafor called Marcus to her office. She was looking at her computer screen with a shocked expression. Marcus, have you seen the quarterly efficiency reports? She asked. Not yet. Are they good? We jumped from rank 847 to rank 156, Sarah said. In 3 months, we went from one of the worst colonies to the top 20%. Marcus felt proud. Kes and Nira have been working very hard. It shows. I have been getting messages from other colonial authority directors asking what we did to improve so quickly. What did you tell them? Sarah grinned. I told them we hired the best people for the job, regardless of politics. However, their success was creating unexpected problems. That evening, Marcus received an official message on his personal communicator. It was from the Zilithian embassy on the capital world of New Terra. The message was formal and cold. The Zilithian government requests the immediate return of citizens Kes 9347 and Nira 9348 for cultural rehabilitation and proper grief counseling. These individuals have been living outside proper social structures for too long and require correction. Marcus felt angry as he read the message. 6 months ago, the Zilithian government had thrown these women away like garbage. Now that they were successful, suddenly they wanted them back. He forwarded the message to Director Okafor and called her immediately. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," Sarah said when she answered. "Success has made us visible. They cannot just take them back, can they? I do not know. Galactic law is complicated when it involves refugees and citizenship rights." The next morning, Marcus found Kes and Nira in the warehouse looking very upset. They had also received messages from the Zilithian embassy, as well as requests from 3 other species who had previously rejected them for employment. "The Altarians want us to work at their research facility," Nira said sadly. "They say our talents are wasted on a small human colony. The Korthak hegemony says they have always valued Zilithian analytical skills," Kes added. "But they rejected our applications 4 months ago." "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. "We want to stay here," both twins said at the same time. "But we may not have choice," Kes continued. "If Zilithian government orders us to return, we must obey." "Why?" Marcus asked. "You are not slaves. Under Zilithian law, we are still citizens. Citizens must obey government orders." Marcus felt frustrated. "But they abandoned you when you needed help. Now they want you back because you are valuable again?" "Yes," Nira said quietly. "That is how our society works. Individual desires are less important than collective benefit. That is not how human society works," Marcus said firmly. Pablo had been listening to the conversation. "Marcus is right. Humans believe individuals have rights that governments cannot take away." "What rights?" Kes asked. "The right to choose where you work and where you live," Pablo explained. "The right to be treated with dignity. The right to make your own decisions about your life." The twins looked confused. "But what if individual choices conflict with government efficiency?" Then the government needs to change," Marcus said. "Governments exist to serve people, not the other way around." That evening, Marcus found Nira sitting alone in the break room, crying quietly. He sat down next to her and waited. "Pablo taught me song his daughter sings," Nira finally said. "Earth, lullaby about stars and dreams. It reminds me of songs my husband used to sing." "That sounds nice," Marcus said. "On our world, widow is not supposed to remember husband after grief period ends, supposed to forget and become useful to society again. But I do not want to forget him. You should not have to forget someone you loved." "Humans have strange ideas about love and memory," Nira said, but she was smiling through her tears. "You think keeping memories makes persons stronger, not weaker. Memory is what makes us who we are," Marcus said. "Without memories, we are just empty shells." "I like being around humans," Nira whispered. "You make me feel like whole person again, not broken thing." Marcus felt angry that anyone had made this intelligent, kind woman feel broken. "You were never broken. You were just grieving, which is normal and healthy. Will you help us stay here?" Nira asked. "Yes," Marcus promised. "We will find a way." But as Marcus walked home that night, he wondered how a small human colony could fight the entire Galactic Council. Tomorrow, he would need to find out just how far humans were willing to go to protect people who had asked for their help. 3 days later, a massive ship landed at New Geneva's spaceport. It was not like the small transport ships that usually visited the colony. This ship was made of gleaming metal and was 3 times larger than anything Marcus had ever seen. Director Okafor called an emergency meeting in the main conference room. When Marcus arrived, he saw Kes and Nira sitting at the table looking terrified. Sarah stood at the front of the room with a grim expression. "The Galactic Council has sent a mediator to resolve our situation," Sarah announced. "His name is Queth9, and he represents the Council's Department of Resource Allocation and Species Management." "Species Management?" Marcus asked. "That sounds terrible." "It gets worse," Sarah continued. "Queth9 has the authority to make binding decisions about where the twins work. The Council considers this a matter of galactic economic efficiency." A few minutes later, the conference room door opened, and the largest alien Marcus had ever seen walked in. Queth9 looked like a walking crystal formation. about 3 meters tall and covered in sharp angles that caught the light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass. "I am Mediator Queth 9, the being announced. I am here to resolve the inefficient allocation of valuable resources." "Resources?" Marcus said before he could stop himself. Queth 9 turned his crystalline head toward Marcus. "You are the human who initially contacted these Zilithian units?" Units? Marcus felt his anger growing. "Their names are Kes and Nira. They are people, not units. Designation is irrelevant," Queth 9 said coldly. "These entities possess valuable analytical capabilities that have been misallocated to a minor colonial operation." Sarah stepped forward. "With respect, Mediator, Kes and Nira are employees of the Terran Colonial Authority. They chose to work here voluntarily." Queth 9 made a sound like grinding crystal. "Choice is inefficient when it conflicts with optimal resource distribution. These entities should be assigned to facilities that can maximize their productive output." He pulled out a large datapad and began reading. "According to efficiency calculations, the Zilithian analytical units should be transferred to the Altarian Advanced Research Institute. This facility can utilize their capabilities at 97% efficiency, compared to 63% efficiency at this location." "How do you calculate that?" Marcus asked. "The Altarian facility conducts research that benefits the entire galactic economy. This colonial supply operation serves only local needs. Simple mathematics indicates the superior allocation." Kes spoke for the first time, her voice shaking. "Mediator Queth 9. We respectfully request to remain at our current assignment. Request denied. Individual preferences cannot override economic optimization." Marcus stood up quickly, his chair scraping loudly on the floor. Every alien in the room turned to look at him in shock. Apparently, humans were not supposed to interrupt formal mediations. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said loudly. "You cannot just move people around like equipment." "Silence," Queth 9 commanded. "Minor species. Do not speak during official mediations." "Minor species?" Marcus felt his face getting hot. "You think humans are minor?" "Humans are a junior member of the Galactic Council, with limited voting rights and restricted authority. You do not have standing to interrupt these proceedings." Marcus looked around the room. The Zilithian representative sat quietly in the corner, not making eye contact with Kes and Nira. A tall alien with gray skin represented the Altarians, and was nodding approvingly at everything Queth 9 said. "Let me understand this," Marcus said, his voice getting louder. 6 months ago, everyone rejected these women because they were grieving. The Zilithian government threw them away. The Galactic Employment Bureau called them unstable. Now that they have proven their value working with humans, suddenly everyone wants them back? Previous decisions were based on incomplete data, Queth 9 said. Current evidence indicates these entities retain full productive capability. "They are not entities," Marcus shouted. "They are people with names and feelings and the right to make their own decisions." The room fell silent. Sarah was staring at Marcus with wide eyes. The alien delegates looked shocked that a human had raised his voice during a formal proceeding. Sarah cleared her throat and stepped forward. "Mediator Queth 9. Perhaps we should review the actual performance data before making any decisions." She activated the wall screen and displayed New Geneva's efficiency improvements over the past month. The numbers were impressive and undeniable. "Since Kes and Nira joined our team, we have exceeded every productivity metric," Sarah said calmly. "Food waste down 31%. Transport costs reduced by 28%. Supply shortages eliminated completely. We have gone from rank 847 to rank 156 among all Terran colonies." The Altarian representative leaned forward. "These results could be even better at our facility." "Could be," Sarah repeated. "But these are actual results achieved right here. Why would you move people who are already succeeding?" "Because optimal allocation requires maximum utilization," Queth 9 said. "Individual satisfaction is irrelevant compared to collective benefit." Marcus felt something snap inside him. "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard." Everyone stared at him again. Humans apparently were not supposed to call Galactic Council mediators stupid. Marcus, Sarah said quietly, please sit down. No, Marcus said. I will not sit down while this crystal robot talks about moving people around like cargo. He turned to face Queth 9 directly. You want to talk about efficiency? Fine. Let me tell you what I have learned about efficiency. Happy people work better than miserable people. People who choose their jobs work harder than people forced into jobs. People who feel valued create better results than people treated like property. Emotional states are irrelevant to productive output, Queth 9 said. Really? Marcus walked over to where Kes and Nira sat. Tell me, how productive were they for the 6 months before they came here? They were not employed during that period. Exactly. Zero productivity. Because your perfect system could not figure out how to use their talents. But humans saw their value immediately. Marcus pointed at the wall screen. Those numbers do not lie. In 1 month, 2 people working where they wanted to work achieved better results than your entire system managed in 6 months. Anecdotal evidence is not sufficient basis for policy decisions. The Altarian representative said. Then let me give you more evidence, Sarah said, joining Marcus. If you relocate Kes and Nira against their will, the Terran Colonial Authority will refuse to share their innovations with the broader galactic community. Queth 9's crystalline body made sharp clicking sounds. You would withhold beneficial technologies for political reasons? We would protect our employees from forced relocation, Sarah corrected. The innovations belong to the people who created them. If you want access to those innovations, you need to respect the innovators' rights to choose where they work. This is blackmail. This is principle. Marcus said. Something your efficiency calculations apparently cannot measure. Kes suddenly stood up. Her voice was quiet but clear. Mediator. Queth 9. We formally request to remain employed by the Terran Colonial Authority. We are productive here, we are treated with respect, and we choose to stay. Nira also stood. We understand that individual choice may be inefficient according to galactic standards. But we have learned from humans that efficiency is not the only value that matters. Queth 9 looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. Finally, he made a decision that surprised everyone. Queth 9 stood silent for several long minutes. The crystalline being seemed to be processing information, or perhaps consulting with someone through hidden communication devices. Marcus could hear his own heart beating in the quiet room. Finally, the mediator spoke. The entities known as Kes and Nira may choose their own work assignment. Marcus felt relief flood through him. But Queth 9 was not finished. However, the mediator continued, this irregular decision requires compensation to the galactic community. The innovations created by these entities while employed by humans must be shared freely with all council member species. Sarah and Marcus exchanged looks. Marcus nodded slightly. We agree, Sarah said. The innovations were never intended to give us competitive advantage. We created them to solve problems. If they can help other colonies and worlds, we are happy to share them. The Altarian representative looked angry. This sets a dangerous precedent. If individuals can choose their assignments based on personal preference, rather than optimal allocation, then maybe individual choice produces better results than forced allocation, Marcus interrupted. Maybe that is something worth considering. Marcus, maybe that is something worth considering. Queth 9 turned his crystalline head toward Marcus. You believe individual autonomy creates superior outcomes to centralized planning? I believe happy people create better results than miserable people, Marcus said. I believe people work harder when they feel valued than when they feel like property. This is not supported by galactic economic theory. Then maybe galactic economic theory is wrong. The room fell silent again. Marcus realized he had just told a galactic council mediator that the fundamental principles of galactic civilization were incorrect. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear under the table. But Queth 9 seemed genuinely curious rather than angry. Explain your reasoning. Marcus took a deep breath. For 6 months, the most advanced species in the galaxy, could not find productive employment for two highly skilled individuals. In 2 weeks, humans not only employed them, but achieved record-breaking efficiency improvements. The difference was not technology or resources. The difference was that we treated them like people instead of assets. You suggest that emotional consideration improves performance metrics? I suggest that people who feel respected and valued work harder than people who feel disposable. Nira spoke up quietly. On our home world, workers did exactly what they were ordered to do, and nothing more. Here, workers suggest improvements and solve problems without being asked. The difference is that humans care about worker happiness, not just worker output. Kes nodded. Humans ask us how we are feeling. They share food and stories. They teach us about their culture. This makes us want to work harder for them, not because we have to, but because we want to. The Zilithian representative finally spoke. This emotional approach seems inefficient. Resources spent on worker satisfaction could be used for productive purposes. But worker satisfaction is productive, Sarah said. Our efficiency improvements prove that. Queth 9 processed this information for another long moment. The Council will study these results. If human employment methods consistently produce superior outcomes, we may need to revise standard practices. You would change galactic employment policies based on what happened here? Marcus asked. Efficiency is the Council's primary objective. If human methods are more efficient, then logic requires we adopt human methods. Marcus almost laughed. Even when considering changing their policies, the Council was thinking in terms of efficiency rather than fairness or compassion. But if better treatment of workers happened to be more efficient, maybe the reason did not matter. The mediation is concluded, Queth 9 announced. The entities Kes and Nira will remain employed by the Terran Colonial Authority. Their innovations will be shared with all Council species within 30 standard days. After the aliens left, Marcus, Sarah, Kes, and Nira sat alone in the conference room. Nobody spoke for several minutes. Did we just win? Marcus finally asked. I think so, Sarah said, but she sounded surprised. Kes and Nira were crying again, but this time they were smiling too. We can stay? Nira whispered. You can stay, Marcus confirmed. This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be. 6 months later, Marcus walked through the New Geneva spaceport with a sense of pride. The colony had become one of the most successful Terran settlements, ranked 43rd out of over 900 colonies. Other colonial authority directors regularly visited to study their methods. More importantly, Kes and Nira had become permanent residents with full citizenship rights. Kes had been promoted to Chief Logistics Coordinator, while Nira headed the new Resource Innovation Department. They had learned to laugh at human jokes, celebrate birthdays, and enjoy coffee with sugar for no reason except that it tasted good. Their innovations had been shared across the galaxy as promised. Dozens of worlds reported improved efficiency using the algorithms developed on New Geneva. Some species had even begun experimenting with human-style worker satisfaction programs. Though most still did not understand why happiness mattered. Marcus was walking home from work when he heard a familiar sound, someone knocking on his apartment door. But this time, he was not surprised. Word had spread through refugee communities that humans sometimes hired based on compassion rather than pure efficiency. He opened the door to find 4 aliens standing outside. They were tall and thin with pale green skin. Marcus did not recognize their species, but he could see the desperation in their large, dark eyes. Please, sir, one of them said in broken galactic standard. We are hegemony refugees. Our world's economy collapsed. We have nowhere to go. We hear humans sometimes help people who need work. Marcus looked at the group carefully. They were clean but obviously poor, carrying small bags that probably contained everything they owned. One of them was holding a child, who could not have been more than a few years old. What kind of work did you do before? Marcus asked. We were agricultural engineers. The woman holding the child said. We specialized in growing food in difficult environments. We specialized. Marcus almost smiled. New Geneva was expanding into areas with poor soil quality. Agricultural engineers who knew how to grow food in difficult places were exactly what the colony needed. "Come inside," Marcus said, stepping back from the door. "You look tired and hungry." The four aliens looked at each other in shock. "We have no money to pay for food," one of them said. "I did not ask for money," Marcus replied. "Come in. Let me make some coffee, and you can tell me about your experience." As the refugees slowly entered his apartment, Marcus thought about how much his life had changed over the past year. A year ago, he had been just another overworked colonial administrator on a failing settlement. Now he was part of something bigger, a new way of thinking about how people should be treated. The next morning, he would introduce these refugees to Director Okafor. If their qualifications were as good as they claimed, New Geneva would benefit from their skills, and 4 more people would have a chance to rebuild their lives with dignity and respect. Marcus closed the door and went to start the coffee machine. Outside his window, he could see the New Geneva Employment Office, with its sign in 12 different languages. Hiring. Based on merit. Not politics. Equal opportunity employer. AT9. Below that, in smaller text, were the words that had become the colony's unofficial motto, a human initiative. Marcus poured coffee for his new guests and began to ask them about their agricultural experience. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. But tonight, 4 more people would go to sleep, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, there were still those who believed that everyone deserved a chance to prove their worth.